1. What do challenges leave us with? The shortest way out of difficulty is through it. Anonymous. A young man was facing many challenges. He was hurt and had lost faith in life. He went to seek advice from a wise old man. After hearing the young man's story, the old man didn't say a word. He simply placed a pot on the stove, filled it with water, and added a carrot, a piece of salt, and an egg. Once the water boiled, he lifted the lid and silently looked at the young man. After a while, he began to speak. Everyone faces challenges and difficulties. What matters is what happens afterward. Look at the salt, solid on the outside, but it dissolves in water. The carrot, tough initially, softens with heat, and the egg, fragile at first, becomes harder when boiled. 2. Keep a calm heart through life's storms. Wise people remain cautious in prosperity and composed in adversity. An ancient teaching tells us not to despair when fortunes fail, for everyone has their purpose. Consider the scholar Tai Lu, who, when his boat capsized while traveling to speak with regional kings, was rescued and laughed off the incident, explaining that just as a gem is not suited for ordinary tasks, his skills were not suited for mere survival but for greater things. Every person has their own talents, and while we may face difficulties due to our shortcomings, our strengths will lead to future glory. There's no need to wallow in defeat or focus solely on our flaws. A snail, envious of a frog's freedom to jump around, soon realized its heavy shell was a blessing when a hawk attacked, and it could hide safely inside while the frog was caught. Just like the poet Li Bai, who only needed wine and moonlight and never felt poor, we all have inherent worth and roles to play. Life has its ups and downs, just like the weather changes and rivers bend. This is the natural order of things. Keeping your heart calm amidst life's challenges allows you to understand the true treasures of life, a pure, generous, and brave heart. 3. Moving forward in life. You must walk the path of life on your own. From suffering, happiness will grow. Facing the stormy rains and winds through thick brambles, the distant horizon is our ultimate goal. Despite stormy nights and scorching days, continue walking the path on your own. He was my student. When he shared this story with me, he was a 15-year-old teenager, bright-faced and handsome, but walking was really difficult for him, always needing crutches. Despite this, he remained very optimistic about life. He often said that his will to live was inspired by his mother's words. Every step is a step you take on your own. When he told me this, his eyes sparkled with belief and a strong determination that couldn't be shaken. Not many kids his age possess this. At age 6, he developed a strange illness that caused his muscles to contract painfully. Walking became a struggle, with frequent falls due to a lack of strength. His health worsened over time, adding to his difficulties. His parents were extremely worried and took him to various hospitals across the country, consulting numerous specialists, but to no avail. Everywhere, doctors shook their heads, saying, "The boy has myopathy. It's hard to cure. For now, we can only use medication along with nutritional supplements and physical therapy to manage it." From then on, his life was very different from others. In elementary school, he faced his first challenges. While other kids could reach school in just over 10 minutes, it often took him much longer, sometimes up to an hour. His classmates, not understanding his situation, often mocked him, which made him even more distressed. When he was 13, one cold winter afternoon, the weather suddenly changed. The air grew icy, and snowflakes swirled around, the wind blowing snow onto the rooftops and filling the streets. After school, as snow crunched underfoot, many parents hurried to pick up their kids. He also waited for his parents at the gate, but even as all his classmates had left, his parents hadn't arrived. Initially worried, he wondered if something had happened to them. Soon his worry turned to deep sadness. Did my parents abandon me? Tears streamed down his young face. Finally, he took a deep breath, gritted his teeth, and stepped out into the snowy rain, trudging through an even more daunting path than usual. He kept falling, his steps heavy and sinking into the snow, his shoes feeling like they were frozen solid. With no one around, all had returned home, likely gathered around fireplaces and dinner tables. The lights from a few homes only deepened his sadness. The way home seemed endlessly far. All he saw was an expanse of white snow. Eventually, he sat down, crying bitterly, his tears freezing before they could even fall, shattering into sharp pieces. He began to think about death, imagining his own funeral where everyone would wear white, just like the snowy night. But death seemed a more comforting thought than his intense pain. His legs were numb, almost feeling nothing. Just then, a rabbit darted past him. Small but bold, it hopped through the snowdrifts fearlessly, searching for its way home. Inspired, he wiped his tears and mustered all his strength to stand up again. The rabbit paused periodically, as if waiting for him. He blindly followed, his world now a blanket of white. During his most painful moments, he had silently blamed his parents for being indifferent, not loving him anymore. Sometimes he wanted to give up, but then it felt like someone was supporting him, pushing him forward. Finally, the familiar gate of his home appeared dimly at the end of the road. Exhausted, he even had to crawl the last few yards. The house lights were still on. It turned out his parents were at home. Stumbling against the wall, about to ring the bell, the door was already open. His mother stood on the porch, tears in her eyes, hands clutching her chest. "You're finally home!" She rushed out to embrace him, and he also burst into tears. From behind, a voice said, "Well done, my son, live strongly like a man." He turned to see his father standing in the snowy wind, snow clinging to his hair, shivering. His mother wiped her tears, tenderly caressed his head, and said, "Look back at each footprint on that road. They were all made by you walking on your own. We are so proud of you. Stay strong in life like that, my beloved son." His father also came forward to embrace them both and spoke firmly. "I've followed you the whole way, saw you fall and get up, saw you cry and then wipe away your tears and keep going. If you hurt a little, I hurt a lot more, wanting to run to you and hold you, but you needed to walk that path to become a strong man." That was the happiest day of our young hero's life. His solitary walk in the snowy night says a lot. At some point in life, you might also face a cold, snowy night. The road may seem long and you might feel incredibly tired and disheartened. What to do then? There's only one answer. Keep going. Keep going. The road beneath your feet is yours to walk. Life is yours to experience and grow. Don't expect a hero to come and rescue you in tough times. Don't expect that difficulties and challenges won't come knocking. Hardships reveal true heroes. Only in the crucible can a true warrior like the mythical Sun Wukong with iron skin and fiery eyes be forged. Every hardship in life is there to elevate you, to take you a step higher on the ladder of life. So cherish such opportunities. As the Tang Dynasty poet Wang Huan wrote in his poem, Ascending the Stork Tower, "The sun beyond the mountain glows, the yellow river seawards flows. You can enjoy a grander sight by climbing to a greater height." 4. Han Xin and the Story of the Awakening Stick. Han Xin, a great general of the Han Dynasty, was once homeless and aimless, wandering the streets and even contemplating ending his life out of boredom and despair. A compassionate elderly woman washing clothes by the river noticed his plight and began bringing him a bowl of rice daily for several days. After eating his fill, Han Xin boldly promised her that he would repay her kindness someday. Upon hearing this, the old woman angrily replied, "I gave you food out of pity, and here you are talking about repaying others. You can't even support yourself." Her harsh words were meant to highlight the absurdity of his statement and served as a tough lesson. Despite her own frailty and poverty, her stern words shamed Han Xin, but also sparked a strong desire in him to change his life. The philosopher Lu Kun of the Ming Dynasty once said, "Being poor is nothing to be ashamed of. Being ignorant while poor is." Without willpower, one is merely boastful and lacks true strength. How can one think of helping others if one can't even take care of oneself? Thanks to the old woman's attitude, Han Xin was motivated to work hard, eventually becoming a distinguished general of the Han Dynasty and fulfilling his promise to repay her. Her blunt criticism, although embarrassing, could not be ignored. Thus, the best approach was to use it as a motivation to transform his circumstances and begin a new journey.
If you like this video, please comment 1, and if you don't, comment 2. Your feedback means a lot to us. Thank you for your valuable time.
5. The calm and confident demeanor of DONGPO. DONGPO, also known as Su Shi, was a celebrated writer and poet during the Northern Song dynasty. He often liked to disguise himself and wander through famous mountains and ancient towers, engaging in discussions with monks. In 1071, while serving as the district magistrate in Hangzhou for 3 years, he visited a local temple. Tired and thirsty, he entered the temple for a rest. The temple steward, seeing his plain clothes, mistook him for an ordinary pilgrim and treated him with indifference, merely saying, "Please sit down," and instructing a young monk to serve tea. The monk brought him a stale cup of cold tea. After chatting for a bit, the steward realized that the visitor was not an ordinary man, given his eloquent speech and extraordinary manner, and invited him into a private room for a more serious conversation. Upon entering, the steward treated him with great respect and served fresh, fragrant tea. After further conversation, the steward discovered his guest was the famous poet DONGPO and was immediately embarrassed, leading him into a guest room with continuous respectful invitations to sit and enjoy fresh tea. Before leaving, DONGPO was asked to leave a keepsake in writing. He penned a couplet that humorously reflected the day's events with phrases about sitting and serving tea. The steward felt ashamed, realizing that one's worth is not determined by others' first impressions. DONGPO's experience and self-cultivation allowed him to remain calm and natural in the face of disregard. This story illustrates that sometimes it's not others who belittle us, but our own actions that may lead to dissatisfaction. The way others treat us can serve as a reflection of our own self-image. Therefore, by striving to improve ourselves, we gradually earn respect. However, this must come through self-cultivation and confidence. As the Russian writer Tell once said, "Believe in yourself first, then others will believe in you." Even if you feel undervalued, like a diamond lost on a beach, your enduring shine will eventually draw attention. So, if you truly are that diamond, don't lament or blame others. Remain steadfast in your dreams, confident that success will come your way. 6. YANGMING and his journey of enlightenment. 500 years ago, YANGMING faced a life-threatening ordeal in Longchang, Guizhou Province, China. It was here that he achieved enlightenment, grasping the principle of the mind is the truth. According to this idea, the mind itself embodies truth. When he visited Dongting Lake, one of his students, Qi Yuanhan, asked him, "What exactly does the mind is the truth mean?" YANGMING simply smiled and did not respond directly. Instead, He called for a young page who handled books and asked him to bring a copy of the Records of the Warring States. He then opened the first page and took out a detailed map of that era. Without a word, Wang YANGMING tore the map into small pieces. He handed these to Qi Yuanhan and tasked him with reassembling them into the original complete map. Despite his best efforts and all his knowledge, Qi Yuanhan could only piece together 6 regions and was unable to complete the map. Feeling defeated, he looked helplessly at his teacher. Wang Yangming smiled and handed a piece of paper to the young page. Qi Yuanhan thought to himself, "If I can't do it, how could the page possibly succeed?" Unexpectedly, the page did not even look at the map of the warring states, but instead flipped all the pieces over. On the back was a portrait of Liu Xiang, the author of The Records of the Warring States. The page told Qi Yuanhan, "Simply piece together this portrait, and the map will naturally come together as well." At that moment, Qi Yuanhan understood what "the mind is the truth" meant. Everything hinges on the mind. The mind is the truth, and truth also arises from the mind. When people are upright, their world is upright. When people are at peace, their surroundings are also tranquil and harmonious. If your mind is clear, the world will not be dark. If your mind is serene, the world will be as warm as spring. All matters in the world need not seek external solutions, for everything exists deep within ourselves. It is not that the world shapes us. Rather, we shape the world. An ancient saying goes, "Appearance stems from the mind, and the landscape changes with the mind," reflecting this principle. 7. Unshakable peace amid life's turmoil. Unshakable peace means staying calm and steady even when the seas are rough and the winds roar. Even if the sky falls or the earth shakes, one remains composed and fearless. One does not let external dangers or difficulties disturb their spirit. Even if Mount Tai crumbles right in front of them or a reindeer charges, they do not flinch or blink. When the South was in chaos and King Min was sent to quell the rebel forces, the situation was extremely complex with continuous defeats and an almost uncontrollable scenario. Going there, if King MINH failed, not only would his life be in jeopardy, but his family could also face death. Yet, King Min remained undisturbed, unaffected by the chaos in the south. Amid the turmoil, he was as calm and leisurely as if riding a horse through a blooming garden. On his first day, he exposed a traitor and, with their help, implemented a counter-spy strategy, achieving a decisive victory in Jiangxi. When King Ning rebelled, the situation became unpredictable. With weak forces, King Min cleverly delayed engagements until he could gain an advantage. He made strategic decisions without being swayed by others' opinions. Later, by restraining his generals from attacking prematurely, he wore down the enemy's morale. In the Battle of Lake DUONG, he used a fire attack to defeat King Ning, and even after capturing him, King Min calmly continued teaching his students. The unshakable spirit can adapt flexibly according to the situation. When faced with complex and chaotic situations, it's easy for many to get lost in immediate problems. Only those with a steadfast inner strength can remain unshaken by external events, becoming a beacon in the dark, illuminating the path forward. 8. Wangduong Min. From Hardship to Enlightenment. During the Ming Dynasty, Emperor Zhu Huji was arrogant, and the eunuch Liu Kan had too much power. Wangduong Min boldly criticized the emperor for trusting corrupt officials and blaming loyal servants. Because of this, he was imprisoned by Liu Kan. After a month in jail where he was beaten severely, Wang was exiled to TRUONG in Guizhou. Liu Kan, still resentful, even sent an assassin after him. Traveling by water to his exile, Wang barely survived the journey. His lung disease worsened and his health declined. Despite these challenges, he persevered and reached Long Truong, a remote and desolate place. The local people, belonging to the Miao ethnic group, lived primitively and were nearly as wild as the barbarians. The atmosphere was so oppressive it seemed life-threatening. Wang's followers gradually fell ill, and before leaving, they urged him to take care of himself. At this point, Wang faced extreme despair. He could not care for his parents, pursue his ambitions, or restore order to the court, and he found himself in this desolate place. Despite losing everything, Wang never gave up. He read and reflected deeply on the books he had with him. One stormy night, lying on the cold, wet stone, soaking under the rain until midnight, he finally understood the questions that had long troubled him. This realization led to the birth of his philosophy: the heart and reason are one. Wang Duongmin was revered as a sage for this insight. He believed that true strength comes from deep reflection, allowing one to be calm and composed in both stillness and action. Hardships are opportunities to refine one's character. Life is a series of tests and transformations. Depending on others makes one weak, but facing life and oneself bravely, acknowledging one's flaws without compromise, leads to courage and forward movement. Success and happiness belong only to the brave and the persevering. Just like the phoenix rises from the ashes and a caterpillar endures pain to become a butterfly, enduring hardship until the end can reveal one's true beauty. 9. The Tale of the Hermit and the Phoenix. Many people admire wise words when they hear them, but find it hard to act on them. Once, a hermit was walking through a sacred forest when he came across a phoenix trapped in a snare. He thought, "What a beautiful bird! I should take it home. My guests would be so impressed." Suddenly, he heard a voice saying, "You shouldn't think like that." Surprised, the hermit looked around but saw no one except the trapped bird. He asked, "Was that you who spoke?" The phoenix replied, "Yes, it's me. I'm not an ordinary bird. I can speak human language and I'm a sage. If you release me, I'll give you 3 pieces of advice." The hermit agreed. "I will set you free, but first tell me your advice." The phoenix said, "First, never trust incorrect advice, no matter who gives it, even if they are famous or hold a high position. Second, don't attempt things beyond your abilities. You will only fail. Know your limits. A wise person respects them. A fool ignores them. Third, never regret doing good deeds, but always repent for the bad ones." These words struck the hermit as profound and meaningful, advice one might not encounter in a lifetime. He then freed the phoenix from the trap. As the trap was removed, the phoenix laughed loudly and said, "Oh, you foolish hermit." The hermit asked, "Why do you call me a fool?" The phoenix replied, "Inside me is a magical pearl. If you had killed me, you could have obtained it and achieved great enlightenment." Regretting his decision, the hermit tried to catch the phoenix again. But as he climbed higher, the phoenix moved to higher branches. When the hermit reached the top of the tree, the phoenix flew away. The hermit, trying to climb down, fell and broke his leg and was bleeding from his head. The phoenix circled back and landed on a nearby branch, saying, "You really are foolish. I don't have any magical pearl. You believed a lie and recklessly climbed too high. And now you regret releasing me? Why regret doing a kind and good deed? Go home and reflect on my advice." Then the phoenix flew away. The hermit realized his mistake. There's a saying, "Learning without practice is like not learning at all." Many hear wise words and agree with them, yet acting on them is much harder, like the hermit who praised the advice only to falter in a moment. If you find these stories inspiring and they motivate you to take action, please comment 9. If not, comment 0. Your feedback means a lot to us. Thank you for your valuable time. 10. The wise old woman discusses karma. Once, there was an old woman who had a unique ability to communicate with the spirit world. People in her community treated her like a fortune teller and often asked her about past and future lives. One day, a group of mistresses from a wealthy man's house ran into her and asked, "Why are we in our current positions as someone else's mistresses?" The old woman explained, "In the spiritual law, small deeds, whether good or bad, can be compensated, but very good or very bad deeds cannot be. In your past lives, you all accumulated minor good deeds, which is why you were born into a wealthy family this time. However, you also carry some bad karma, so your lives are not perfect and you face some troubles in this household. If you work on doing good deeds, you can balance out the bad karma from your past. As you increase your good deeds, your next life will be more complete and perfect. But if you do bad things now, your good karma will decrease, and your bad karma will increase, leading to a potentially miserable next life. True good deeds don't just involve offering prayers or worship, but also respecting elders, showing respect to the head wife, and promoting harmony within the family." Another person asked, "Whether or not we have children is usually considered predestined. Could you check for me if the records in the spirit world say I won't have children so I can stop hoping for it?" The old woman replied, "You don't need to check. Just focus on doing good deeds. Even if the records say no children, good actions can change that to having children. Conversely, if you do bad deeds, even if the records initially indicate you will have children, that can change to not having them." In the village, there was a young man who was always sincere and honest, and he generally disliked fortune tellers. However, he had great respect for the old woman and often spent time discussing with her. He said, "Whether what the old woman says is true or not, I don't know, but she never asks for money for her advice, and that's a very admirable quality that few possess." 11. Beware of smugness and arrogance. There's an old story about a day when King So and his courtiers went hunting in the forest. That day, the royal hunting party had a very successful haul, so all the courtiers were feeling quite pleased with themselves. Suddenly, a monkey appeared, playfully jumping from tree to tree. While everyone was in high spirits, King So took his bow and shot at the monkey, but it skillfully dodged every arrow. Then it nonchalantly performed somersaults on the branches, making King So increasingly angry. King So then ordered his most skilled general to take a shot. However, the monkey was too agile, and even the general couldn't hit it. The monkey, seeing this, became even more smug. It sat on the branch, taunting the courtiers, and continued to frolic, making the king and his men feel like they were being mocked. Enraged, King So commanded all his soldiers to shoot thousands of arrows at once, making it impossible for the monkey to escape. King So said, "This monkey died because it did not know its own limits. It was too smug and forgot itself. Monkeys are intelligent and agile creatures. If it had known its limits, it could have lived a carefree life, happily returning to its troop instead of meeting such a tragic fate. In life, going beyond limits can turn any good deed bad. It's like a river that waters the fields on both banks. If it flows quietly, it serves its purpose. But if it gets lost in praise and refuses to flow, instead swelling up, it can become a disaster. At that point, who would praise it? The same is true for any action. You can't get carried away and exceed limits. Doing so can harm not only yourself but also bring disaster to others. Those who are smug often forget their original goals. They should remember that life is a long journey, and whether successful or not, it's the same. Each small achievement, Even a big leap is just a small mound on the road, not a peak holding precious jewels. Therefore, they cannot see the higher mountains. 12. Secrets to a happy life. Stop comparing yourself unfavorably with others. Learning to love life is enough. Are we living by others' expectations or staying true to ourselves? There is a famous saying in TIAN, "Those who are greedy though rich are poor, those who are content though poor are rich." People who never feel satisfied or content will fail to appreciate the beauty of life surrounding them. During the Ming Dynasty, a man named Hoku came from a poor background and worked hard just to make ends meet daily. At dusk, he would go out to his gate, light incense, and bow in gratitude to heaven for a peaceful, happy life. His wife, puzzled, asked him why, and he smiled and said, "Living in a time of peace, where there's no war, where our family has food to eat and clothes to wear, where we aren't freezing to death, and where no one is sick or in prison, how can this not be considered a peaceful and happy life?" Don't compare yourself to others or focus only on what others have. Be content with what you have. A sufficient home, enough money to spend, dutiful children, and healthy parents are enough. Life is merely a collection of small joys. Living fully in the present means you are living as completely as possible. Sometimes what others have and you don't, or what you have that others don't, may not even be suitable for you. What is yours will eventually come to you, and what isn't, no matter how much you strive, will remain beyond your reach. We often aren't satisfied with what we have and always crave what others possess. Have you ever caught yourself comparing your life to others? If only I were as beautiful as her, I'd surely find a perfect husband. If only I were as educated and pretty as her, surely my boss would value me more. If only my wife were as beautiful as others, I'd be proud in public. If only I had enough money to travel like them. If only I could sing or play an instrument as well as that artist. But then we grow tired and sigh when we return to reality and ourselves. Reality remains as it is. We can only go so far. Life seems to favor others and forget about us. TAIAN says, "If things don't go your way, think of those less fortunate, and your resentment will disappear. If laziness arises, think of those better than you, and your spirits will lift." Everyone has their way of living, and no one can live exactly like someone else. Each person has their strengths. Life doesn't need comparisons. Living fully is what's most important. Don't compare yourself to others. The hardships others endure behind the scenes might be more than you can handle. Life is like a painting, and each person is an irreplaceable piece. TRUONG illustrated this beautifully in a cartoon. A girl, feeling extremely unhappy, decides to jump from a building. As she falls, she sees a famously loving couple quarreling on the 9th floor. A man who always appeared strong is secretly crying on the 8th floor. A young woman is taking antidepressants. Before jumping, the girl thought she was the most miserable, but as she falls, she realizes everyone has their struggles and hidden pains. The happiness others show is not their whole life. Above, there are white clouds and golden sun, birds flitting between trees, and sparkling stars. Below, there are green mountains and clear waters, with flowers blooming everywhere. In the vast ocean, there are colorful creatures and busy ships. Birds rejoice in their flight. Fish swim freely in cool waters, and animals happily roam the deep forest and waters. Even humans vary in skin color, eye color, and customs. Without any of these elements, wouldn't life be dull? If life had only one color, could you see the beautiful rainbow after the rain? If everywhere were only beautiful roses, wouldn't life be monotonously colored? The path to success, long or short, is less important than your personal experiences. Life is diverse, and people are born with different looks, personalities, and destinies. Happiness doesn't have a one-size-fits-all formula. What's important is that you are yourself and happy with your unique identity. We realize that we come into the world with nothing and leave in the same way. Beauty, love, wealth, and fame eventually fade like mist. No one can escape the natural cycle of life and death. So in this life, we are fortunate to be here. Let's live genuinely to ourselves. Why conform to others' standards of happiness? Instead, find a belief that elevates your soul, making you realize you are unique, as is everyone else. But we are all pieces of each other, forming a complete picture among humanity. Thus, we can stop comparing ourselves to others while maintaining our pure, unique identities. 13. The Tale of TRUONG Bao TANG. During the Tang dynasty, wealth comes from destiny. During the Trinquan era of the Tang dynasty, TRUONG Bao Tang was a military general in the Imperial Guard. He often traveled to Luoyang on his days off from court duties. One day, while on the road, he encountered a young hunter grilling fresh meat. Leaning against a tree, he sighed and said, "I, TRUONG Bao Tang, am 70 years old and have never tasted such delicious fresh meat. It's truly a pity." Just then, a monk passed by and pointed at TRUONG, saying, "Within the next 60 days, you will be promoted to a third-rank official. Why do you sigh like that?" After speaking, the monk quickly left. Astonished, TRUONG immediately returned to the capital instead of continuing to Luoyang. At that time, Emperor Tang Taizong was suffering from dysentery, causing him great distress. Many court physicians had tried but failed to cure him. The emperor then declared, "Any high official who finds an effective remedy for this illness will be appropriately rewarded." TRUONG had previously suffered from dysentery and knew an effective treatment. He promptly presented his remedy to Emperor Tang Taizong. The emperor took the medicine and was immediately cured. He ordered his prime minister to reward TRUONG with a fifth-rank official position. However, the prime minister did not follow the order, and more than a month passed without TRUONG receiving his appointment. Unexpectedly, the emperor fell ill again. He ordered the use of the same medicine and was cured once more. The emperor asked the prime minister, "I had previously ordered TRUONG Bao Tang to be appointed as a fifth-rank official. Why has he not yet been appointed? What's the reason?" Terrified, the prime minister replied, "When your majesty issued the order, you did not specify whether it was for a civil or military position." The emperor, knowing that a previous healer of the prime minister had been made a third-rank official, angrily said, "If someone who cured the prime minister could be made a third-rank official, am I not worth more? I want TRUONG Bao Tang to be a third-rank civil official with full ceremonial honors." It was exactly 60 days since the monk's prophecy. This event led many to believe that not only a person's life and death, but also their fortune are predestined. Thus, the ancient saying goes, "What is meant to be in your destiny will come at the right time. If it's not meant to be, do not force it. What's not in your fate, you cannot obtain by force." 14. Turning adversity into advantage. Once, in a small town in America, there were two brothers whose mother tragically died from a severe illness when they were just children. Grieving, their father turned to gambling and drinking, gradually squandering the family's wealth. Eventually, with nothing left, he resorted to stealing. The brothers lived in extreme poverty, scavenging for scraps to survive. The older brother would spend any small earnings on a full meal to enjoy, while the younger one saved his money, living frugally and accumulating enough to pay for night school. As they grew up, the older brother became a vagrant, adopting habits of drinking, drug use, and fighting. He even became a leader among local troublemakers, engaging in theft and causing chaos. Meanwhile, the younger brother diligently studied. He worked by day in a restaurant to pay for school and took literature classes at night. Over 10 years, their lives took drastically different paths. The older brother ended up in prison for manslaughter, while the younger became a celebrated author, with his books warmly received everywhere. In 2010, a journalist decided to interview the brothers around Christmas. Visiting the older brother in prison, the journalist asked if his father's bad influence led to his current life. He confirmed it, saying, "The bad deeds of my father weigh on me like a heavy stone, and that's why I chose this path." The journalist then interviewed the younger brother who, despite being busy with his new book, took the time to meet. Asked if he was influenced by their father, he replied, "My father's life was like a heavy stone in my heart. My brother carried that stone on his back, making each step painful. I put that stone under my feet as a stepping stone to move forward with more strength." Growing up, there were two families in my hometown. Two women, close in age, became fast friends as new brides in the village. Both married well-to-do, handsome men, causing envy among the local women. However, their happiness was short-lived as both husbands, known for their wandering eyes, soon left. As a result, both families ended up without husbands, the children without fathers. Although the women cared for each other, they chose different paths. One woman, feeling young at 26 and with a long life ahead, left her child behind to find a new life and husband, choosing comfort and financial security but leaving her family broken. The other, despite being abandoned, focused on her children, working tirelessly to provide for them, transforming her sorrow into strength. Her children grew up helping around the house, and the family became an example of resilience and prosperity in the community. Faced with the same circumstances, one woman lived a transient life, with a husband in name only and distant from her children, while the other sacrificed her youth for her children's future, enduring hardship for their sake. As the saying goes, a part of effort leads to a part of success. 10 years of hard work can shape half a lifetime of fortune. Life is full of challenges, and success often comes from the ability to turn adversity into advantage, transforming weaknesses into strengths.
If you like this video, please comment 1, and if you don't, comment 2. Your feedback means a lot to us. Thank you for your valuable time.
15. The story of Emperor YUANZHANG. YUANZHANG, also known as the Hongwu Emperor, 1328 to 1398, once disguised himself to patrol a rural area. Accustomed to commanding attention, he felt uneasy in disguise. During this incognito journey, feeling hot and thirsty, he encountered a farmer who offered him a cup of tea. To the emperor, this tea tasted as exquisite as fine wine. Upon returning to his palace, he immediately rewarded the farmer with a minor official position. A scholar, knowing this, felt it was unjust and wrote on a temple wall, "10 years of hard study cannot compare to 1 cup of tea." Years later, YUANZHANG returned and saw these words. After learning their origin, he added, "His talent is not like yours. Your fate is not like his." This story illustrates that life often appears unfair. Power, wealth or poverty, intelligence or simplicity, beauty or plainness, and the chances or misfortunes people encounter can never be perfectly balanced. This is a phenomenon revealed in the world. It's impossible for everyone to be completely equal, but according to the principle of karma, what you do comes back to you. Wealth can turn into poverty and vice versa without end. Thus, in the fate and karma of human beings, there is ultimate fairness. Therefore, there's no need to blame the heavens for injustice or feel treated unfairly by fate, as all relationships have their reasons. In fact, the ancients taught about fate not to suggest that one should abandon responsibility for their life like a drifting weed in the flow of a river. If one neglects their responsibilities, is lazy, or commits evil, their fate will change accordingly. People should strive for good and shun evil, aligning with the ways of nature. Understanding one's destiny allows a person to face life's arrangements calmly, without distress over gains or losses, and without compromising their moral integrity. They can live a free and easy life with a generous attitude toward life's experiences. 16. Living calmly and yielding. The wisdom of the enlightened. The wise know when to advance and when to retreat, without the need to compete for higher or lower status. They do not dwell on being better or worse, happily observing the flowers blooming and fading in their yard and watching the clouds gather and disperse in the sky. Isn't this the realm of the enlightened? Ancient wisdom suggests that everyone has their destiny. The joys and sorrows of a lifetime are preordained. Wealth and honor are believed to be based on virtues accumulated from past lives. Engaging in envy and dissatisfaction to harm others will not alter one's fate, but will instead accumulate karma and bring misfortune upon oneself. In the book Song Minor Records, there's a couplet: unmoved by favor or disgrace, watching flowers bloom and wilt before the yard, leaving or staying without concern, watching the sky as clouds come and go. These few words deeply encapsulate the author's philosophy and attitude towards life. One should not revel in gain or wallow in loss. Whether honored or disgraced, remain undisturbed. Whether coming or going, remain unbothered. Why engage in strife and harm one another? Only then can one maintain a serene and clear state of mind. During the Song dynasty, there was a poet and prime minister named MINH who was unaffected by ordinary wealth and status. When Emperor Zhenzong appointed him to a significant position, Li Tongyue, a scholar at the academy, was present. The emperor remarked that Minjong must be delighted. Li Tongyue reported the next day that Minjong's home was not bustling with guests as expected, showing his indifference to the appointment. Minjong's response to the honor was minimal, reflecting his disinterest in fame and profit. Ancient teachings like those in Yueyang Tower Memoirs by Fan Zhongyan from the Northern Song era also emphasize a philosophy of serving the people and the ruler without being swayed by material benefits or personal misfortunes. Concern for the people comes before personal joy. The enlightened have open hearts, leading to a greater share of fortune. If people could understand each other a little more, misunderstandings would diminish. If hearts could be more forgiving, conflicts would decrease. Do not judge others solely through your own perspective or force others to fully understand you. Everyone has their personality and viewpoint. Because humans often value themselves highly, they worry about gains and losses and seek others' understanding. In truth, taking oneself a bit less seriously and valuing others more can lead to happiness. The more content and warm-hearted you are, the brighter your life will be. Yielding does not mean losing or weakness. It signifies respect and knowing when to give way. Stepping back can open up a vast space, a character trait of high wisdom and a form of nurturing. Those who can yield are truly admirable. They know when to let go of their views and personal interests to make room for others. Letting go is not losing, it is winning the hearts of others. The more you live with calmness and warmth, the sunnier your life becomes. 17. Patience and overcoming suffering in life. Buddhism teaches that having a human body means experiencing suffering. Beyond the pain of birth, aging, illness, and death, there is also the suffering of separation, unfulfilled desires, and injustices that one cannot easily share with others. Whether one sinks into this sea of suffering and self-destruction, or transcends like a lotus rising clean from the mud depends on how one interprets and faces these adversities. The same misfortune can lead to different fates, determined by just a small difference in character. For instance, Vu Nuong from Nam Shuang was a woman of complete integrity, married to Truong Sin, a man prone to jealousy. When Vu Nuong was about to give birth, her husband was called to the army. Alone, she gave birth and took great care of her mother-in-law. Grieving her son, the mother-in-law became very ill and passed away. Vu Nuong managed the funeral with deep respect. To soothe her loneliness, she often played with her child by pointing to her shadow on the wall and telling him it was his father. When Truong Sin returned and learned of his mother's death, he took the child to the field. The child cried out, claiming that Truong Sin was not his father, saying his father came every night just like the shadow on the wall. Due to his blind jealousy, Truong Sin mistreated Vu Nuong and eventually drove her away. Despite the neighbors' attempts to mediate, unable to clear her name, Vu Nuong drowned herself in the YUANZHANG River to prove her innocence. One evening, pointing to a shadow, the child remarked, "Look, father has come again." Filled with regret, Truong Sin realized the truth, but Vu Nuong was gone forever. Another woman, THUAT from the Chao Lai region, was both talented and virtuous. Married to TNC, an attractive scholar, she quietly let him rest when he was tired from studying. Noticing a whisker growing awkwardly on his chin, she attempted to trim it while he slept. Startled awake, TNC mistakenly accused her of trying to harm him. His parents, upon hearing this, immediately believed him and forced her to leave. THUAT, bearing the false accusation, disguised herself as a man and fled to a monastery, where she lived under the monastic name King Tom. Near the monastery, a flirtatious woman named Thi Mao, upon seeing King Tom, falsely accused him of fathering her child. Unable to defend himself, King Tom endured harsh punishment. Eventually, Thi Mao was forced to give the child to King Tom, who compassionately raised the child despite ridicule. After 3 years, Buddha recognized King Tom's true virtue, bestowing upon her the honor of Bodhisattva. Before she died, King Tom left a letter revealing her true identity, finally clearing her name. These stories of Vu Nuong and THUAT illustrate that enduring suffering can lead to ultimate happiness. Vu Nuong could not bear her unjust reputation and chose death, while THUAT endured one injustice after another, continually nurturing her will and compassion. This exemplifies the power of patience, which not only involves forbearance but also the strength to accept humiliation without losing one's calm. In Chinese, the character for patience combines the symbols for a knife and heart, suggesting that enduring a sharp pain without disturbance reflects true resilience. Han Xin, who tolerated humiliation to later become a great general, exemplified that true patience is not weakness but a noble strength. As an ancient sage said, "Forgive, forgive, forgive." Suddenly, all disasters disappear. Endure, 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 and neither creditors nor enemies remain. True patience in suffering indeed brings great blessings. 18. The mystery of fate. If all the major events in the world are predetermined, then so are the smaller ones, like the moves in a chess game, the process of writing, the corrections made to errors, and what the final piece looks like. It's all been decided beforehand. Here are 2 examples to illustrate this. In the past, there were 2 chess players, with a third person sitting aside drawing a map of the chess game's progress. Once the game ended, they opened the map and were amazed to see that the moves recorded on the paper perfectly matched the actual game moves. Another event happened during the early years of the TANG dynasty. A man named Wang was predicting the career path of Li Kui. Wang handed Li a sealed letter saying, "Open this when you are appointed as Shi. Later, someone recommended Li Kui to the emperor, who then ordered a review of his writings. The tasks included writing 3 specific articles, which Li completed from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m., making 8 corrections and adding 2 notes. True to the prophecy, Li was appointed as Shi. About 10 days after his appointment, Li opened the letter from Wang, finding the content exactly matching the articles he had written earlier, including the corrections and notes. This type of coincidence might seem inexplicable to the average person, but those who can foresee the future might be able to explain it as everything being a matter of destiny. If you find these stories inspiring and they motivate you to take action, please comment 9. If not, comment 0. Your feedback means a lot to us. Thank you for your valuable time. 19. The true value of life. Life is hectic, and everyone gradually gets caught up in the daily grind, chasing after money and status, which pulls us into worldly concerns. We can't stop to ponder our gains and losses or let our emotions control us. Over time, our souls become empty without us even realizing. Why do we busy ourselves our whole lives? Life is full of suffering, a concept not easily summed up in a few words. Centuries ago, Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha, was born a prince, raised in luxury, and promised a future of immense power. However, for someone who had achieved enlightenment, life was just like a dream. All things, including wealth and power, are ultimately as transient as clouds drifting across the sky. From the moment of birth to experiencing all life's highs and lows and eventually facing aging and death, all that remains in the end is ashes. Thus, the Buddha sought a path to transcend these inevitabilities and reach enlightenment. Han Zhongli, one of the legendary 8 immortals, saw the potential in La Dongtan to follow the spiritual path. Zhongli invited him to practice together on the mountain, but La Dongtan initially refused. One day, while Zhongli was cooking a meal, La Dongtan fell asleep and dreamt of a whole lifetime. He passed exams with high marks, held high office, became a prime minister, married, and had children and servants. But then, a great calamity struck. He was betrayed and lost everything, his family, wealth, and wandered in poverty and loneliness, regretting his life choices. When Lan Dongtan woke up, the meal was still not ready. Zhongli laughed and said, "The meal is not yet cooked, but the dream is already over." After this, Lan Dongtan decided to follow Zhongli and eventually became an immortal renowned throughout history. What is the true purpose of a human life? Everyone tirelessly searches for an answer, and each person has their own perspective. In life, just as all things need sunlight, air, and water, we cannot do without moral standards of good and evil. Humans are the spirit of all living things, so we must live up to these standards. It's said that everyone is born with a purpose. Sometimes, life might seem dull and meaningless, but from another angle, we play a crucial role to those around us. Thus, understanding the rules of life, discerning right from wrong, and living with a pure and honest heart, letting things happen naturally, can lead to a peaceful and contented life. 20. Forgiveness, a priceless gift for the soul. No one is perfect, and everyone makes mistakes at some point. If you cannot forgive others, don't expect them to forgive you. Who can claim they've never erred in their life? Forgiving your enemies actually frees you from the invisible chains within your own heart. If not removed, these chains tighten over time, eventually causing resentment and mental anguish that can lead to various illnesses. Therefore, forgiving others is essentially saving yourself. An ancient story tells of King So of the state of Chu, who once held a grand banquet for his ministers. During the event, a strong wind blew out all the candles, plunging the hall into darkness. Seizing the moment, a courtier teased one of the king's maids. The maid broke the courtier's hatband in defense and wanted to light the candles to identify and punish the perpetrator. However, King So dismissed the idea, stating, "If my guests are not merry enough to break their hatbands, then they are not truly enjoying themselves." This led all the ministers to break their own hatbands, thus protecting the identity of the guilty courtier. 2 years later, during a war with the state of Jin, a general from Chu who had once teased the maid risked his life heroically on the battlefield to repay the king's earlier mercy. King So, known for his generosity and broad-mindedness, might not have had such a brave general if he hadn't forgiven the incident at the banquet. Forgiveness isn't just granting mercy to others. It's a gift to our own souls. It's not difficult to forgive. The real challenge is letting go of bitterness and resentment. Hatred is a vicious demon. If you cling to it, you only give it more energy and life until it ultimately consumes you. Remember, forgiveness is a refreshing stream that extinguishes the flames of hatred. Without the capacity to forgive, you cannot succeed in life. At the heart of forgiveness is a spirit of kindness and goodness. To forgive more easily, should you not always cultivate a compassionate and generous heart within yourself? True virtue resides in such a heart. 21. The Art of Physiognomy by Yuanzhang Kang. In history, especially in ancient times, there were many experts in the art of physiognomy. These experts could predict someone's future destiny just by looking at their facial features. One such expert during the Tang dynasty was Yuanzhang Kang, considered the foremost expert in feng shui in China. His son, Yuan Ke-su, continued his father's work and became well known for his accurate predictions about people's futures. In the Xian Kang era under Emperor Tang Tong, Yuan Ke-su was brought into the imperial palace because of his expertise in physiognomy and literature. One day, the emperor placed a mouse in a silver box and asked his court officials and several physiognomists what was inside. While others guessed there was one mouse inside, Yuan Ke-su predicted there were actually 4 mice. Indeed, when the emperor opened the box, it contained 4 mice because the original mouse had given birth to 3 more. Later, Yuan Ke-su and a scholar were about to cross a river by boat. Before boarding, Yuan Ke-su observed the aura of everyone on the boat and advised his companion to wait. They stayed ashore, and soon after, a noble-looking man with a limp hurried onto the boat. Seeing him, Yuan Ke-su decided it was safe to proceed, as the man's presence indicated they would be protected. Despite dangerous weather during the crossing, everyone arrived safely on the other side. Yuan Ke-su later learned the man was Lao Su-duk, who eventually became a high-ranking official and a respected prime minister. Yuanzhang Kang also lived in Luoyang, where he was frequently visited by high-ranking officials and scholars. He predicted the futures of 3 visitors, Do Yem, Wang Kui, and V Din, based on their facial features. He foresaw that despite initial setbacks, they would be recalled to high positions. This prediction came true, and they eventually returned to prestigious roles in the capital. These stories reinforce the belief that people's destinies might be predetermined, and Yuanzhang Kang's predictions often proved eerily accurate. 22. The Journey of Liberation and Reflection on Human Life. In life, we only have about 100 years, so let's live happily and not get too caught up in pursuits. Life is short, and when we die, we can't take anything with us. Some people believe death is the end, while others see it as the beginning of a new life. For Tibetans, death simply means the soul has left the body, leaving behind an empty shell. Vultures, revered by Tibetans and known as sacred eagles, play a significant role. Instead of burying the dead, Tibetans carry bodies up the mountains to feed the vultures in a ritual called sky burial. Some find this practice gruesome, but it deeply reflects on human existence. Initially, sky burial wasn't part of my journey, but a monk told us that after witnessing it, many worldly attachments could be released. Indeed, after seeing it, you realize how trivial and laughable our attachments are. Watching the process for the first time, I was not scared but saw through a human life. That day, as the monks used hammers, my mind emptied completely. Watching the bodies amidst the elements, left to the hungry vultures, I found myself crying. This is life, regardless of who you were, rich or poor, high or low. And regardless of what you experienced, all end up the same. Vultures soaring, winds blowing dust, and bodies dissolving into nothingness. Not everyone can endure watching a sky burial as it turns bodies into mere food for wild vultures. The body you cherished and the beautiful face you adored, all your life's conflicts and resentments, eventually come to nothing. Like a child who thinks a tiger is as cute as a kitten until seeing one, only at a sky burial did I realize that all lives, whether men or women, rich or poor, young or old, meet the same fate. The intense love you felt appears so pale and foolish in this context because, in the end, everyone must let go of everything. Our lives are really just like this. Dreams, desires, sufferings, and pursuits all disappear like dust in the wind. Witnessing the dissolution of a life, I felt neither fear nor disgust. Everything before me was just bare reality. This is the result of living. After leaving the sky burial site and returning to the Buddhist academy, I saw everyone there, regardless of gender or looks, as equal. Those moments of non-discrimination felt like seeing humans as mere machines. After the sky burial, enlightened by the clear sky, you understand these feelings more deeply. After the sky burial journey, my relationship with my husband changed. We had been married for 10 years, yet I had never fully acted as a dutiful wife. We always had conflicts, despite his calm and caring nature, which I had taken for granted, always selfish and only caring about my feelings. Once, upset, I argued with him and left home for a while. Even after many mistakes, I had not formally apologized. If I were still my old self, I would have insisted on a divorce to end everything. In Tibet, I called to apologize to my husband, but I choked up before the words could come out. He always said he was less of a Buddhist than me, but now I realize he was closer to it. True Buddhist practice doesn't require seclusion in deep mountains or daily chants, but lies in maintaining a pure state of mind, speaking and acting with correct understanding, and keeping compassion and purity in the heart unaffected by external circumstances. A senior monk once told me, "Be happy with old karma. Do not create new karma." This is what we need to do. Returning home this time, I had the courage to face my husband and apologize. I have studied Buddhism for many years, but only now has the Buddhist path become real to me. That night, my husband said that it was the first time he felt my personality had truly changed. Perhaps it was because I had finally taken a serious look at myself. As a senior monk once said, "If you can't handle worldly matters well, what about the path to liberation?" Another monk advised that even if your spouse cheats, don't think about divorce or make a fuss, but calmly wait for the natural end of the relationship. If you stubbornly do something, it might create new karma, making things worse. The final advice remains: be happy with old karma. Do not create new karma. Everything is about liberation in this life. The meaning of this is not about being two-faced, but about karma and reincarnation. I don't feel sorry for you, I don't hate you, and I don't blame you. We come into this world alone and leave alone. The gates of life and death are solitary. We are not just spouses, not just family or friends. The world has no right or wrong, only cause and effect. We are wrong because our minds are not pure, because we lack wisdom, obscured by delusional thoughts. Some say those who receive a sky burial are blessed to bond with the sky. I think, for the departed, letting go of the physical body through sky burial is one thing, but for the living, letting go of worldly attachments is the real way to connect with the sky.
If you like this video, please comment 1, and if you don't, comment 2. Your feedback means a lot to us. Thank you for your valuable time.
23. General THUAT and the Life of Prime Minister TUONG. TUNG used physiognomy to save his son. The physiognomist foresaw the life of a prime minister. A person's facial features carry a lot of information. Experts in physiognomy can tell many things from this. In the story below, a physiognomist predicted the career of the Prime Minister YUANZHANG, while the famous physician TUNG used physiognomy to foresee a future event, helping his son escape a punishment of caning. TUNG, skilled in physiognomy, helped his son avoid a future caning. TUNG was revered as a saint of medicine and lived over 100 years. He was not only a master of medicine, but also of physiognomy. TUNG once told Cao Trong Thu that he had the features of a noble person and would hold a deputy governor position. If I go to Tachao as a deputy governor in a few years, my son will serve under you as a district official. There will be a time when he inadvertently breaks the law. Although his offense deserves the caning punishment, you will remember my words today, as an old man over 100 years old. I hope you will spare him from the caning. Later, indeed, just as TUNG had said, his son was stripped of his official robes for a violation. Just as his son was about to be caned, Cao Trong Thu suddenly remembered TUNG's words from years ago, and he immediately pardoned TUNG's son. The physiognomist's predictions for both individuals came true. During the reign of Empress Wu Zetian, under her were the Prime Minister YUANZHANG and the Minister of Rituals TRUONG, both born in Song Than, Song Chao, in the region of Thuong Khao, Hanam today. Both were considered virtuous and talented scholars. Furthermore, from a young age, they were very close friends. Later, despite reaching their 30s without notable achievements, there was a master of physiognomy who, upon meeting YUANZHANG and TRUONG, always showed great respect. One day, this master of physiognomy met the two and said to YUANZHANG, "People say like attracts like. Do you believe that? Ngu, as an official, you will surely reach the highest ranks. Moreover, your reputation will be illustrious. As an official, you will be loyal and truthful, not engaging in corrupt practices, becoming a pillar of the state, a key figure in the court. Although your facial features indicate nobility, your fate will be fraught with challenges and worries, but these are matters only after you become a prime minister, so don't worry. When faced with decisions, you need to act and respond to opinions." After that, the physiognomist turned to TRUONG and said, "In the future, you will wear purple robes and carry a golden seal, destined for immense fortune and longevity. Upon entering the ranks of high officials, you will be promoted to one of the 8 key ministers. You will serve continuously without demotion, and your lifespan will also be very long." YUANZHANG then asked the physiognomist, "When will I start receiving my official salary? If I become an official, what position will I hold when I retire?" The physiognomist replied, "If you submit a letter to the emperor this year, the salary will come." That very year, YUANZHANG went to the capital to submit a letter to the Luoyang Palace, but after a long wait without a response from the court and his travel funds depleted, he returned home. On his way back, he met an acquaintance who gifted him a lot of silk and cloth. With these assets, Nguyen Trung returned to Luoyang Palace. Just then, the emperor also issued an edict calling Nguyen Trung to the court and appointed him as an officer of ceremonies. Later, he was promoted to Grand Physician. During this time, because he defied the holy command and offended the nobility, he was often reprimanded and investigated and eventually imprisoned. Each time he thought of suicide, he remembered the words of the physiognomist from years ago. This reassured him, and he continued to persevere. Despite the adversity, Nguyen Trung became more upright, criticized the times without wavering in his principles or reducing his words. Finally, just as the physiognomist predicted, he was pardoned and rose to the position of prime minister. Later, Nguyen Trung experienced various promotions and demotions, was appointed as the Bo Sha prime minister, and then demoted from Bo Sha to deputy governor of Nam Quan. After a journey along the river, a few days later, he fell seriously ill. Nguyen Trung pondered, "Will I die here?" Indeed, he died there. The life and career of Minister of Rituals, Trinh Duy Trung, also completely fulfilled the physiognomist's predictions. 24. Astonishingly accurate prophecies. Tong Mao Zhong had a peer from Huainan named Bai Shu Lian, known for his expertise in numerology and recognized as a scholar during the Ming and Qing dynasties. One morning after waking up, Tong Mao Zhong told his wife, "In September this year, Brother Bai in Huainan will pass away. He has no sons, so we must go there to bid him farewell and take care of his affairs." As the predicted day approached, Tong Mao Zhong sailed to Huainan. Upon arrival at Bai Shu's home, he found Bai Shu waiting outside, smiling and saying, "I knew you would come today to see me off." The two then went inside and spent time reminiscing. Indeed, a few days later in September, Bai Shu passed away peacefully. After handling Bai Shu's affairs, Tong Mao Zhong returned home and told his wife, "All is settled with Brother Bai's affairs. I should also prepare to leave this world in March next year." True to his words, he passed away in March the following year. After his death, Tong Mao Zhong left behind a collection of writings, which were preserved and valued by later generations. This shows that our lives, from birth to death, are but a speck in the universe, fleeting like the moon's shadow through a window, with our comings and goings predestined. Whether fortune or misfortune, disgrace or honor, one should live naturally and lead a life of integrity. Tong Mao Zhong had difficulty having children. It was not until he was 49 that he had a son, named Tong Zhang Yu, born in 1617 and died in 1667, also known as Ji Feng. Tong Zhang Yu became a scholar during the transition from the Ming to the Qing dynasty and excelled academically, eventually becoming an official for the Qing dynasty, rising to the position of vice-royal inspector. When Tong Zhang Yu was born, his father, Tong Mao Zhong, predicted his fate and sealed the prediction in an envelope, instructing his wife to open it only when their son passed the imperial examination as a doctorate. 5 years after Tong Mao Zhong's death, during the 4th year of the Shunji era, Tong Zhang Yu, at the age of 30, succeeded in his examinations. The family then opened the envelope and found a prediction stating that after the age of 30, he would serve the new dynasty and reach a high official rank, living until the age of 50. Indeed, during the Kangxi year of Bingshu, Tong Zhang Yu was promoted to Viceroyal Inspector, a 3rd-rank official. He passed away the following year in the year of Dingwai, living exactly 50 years. 25. Should you argue with the petty? Ancient wisdom says that deep waters flow quietly and honorable people speak gently. It only takes us 2 years to learn how to speak, but a lifetime to learn when to remain silent. Confucius had a student who loved to debate. One day, while visiting Confucius, this student encountered a man at the gate who stopped him and said, "I hear your teacher is the sage Confucius, so you must be very learned. Tell me, how many seasons are there in a year? If you answer correctly, I'll bow down to you, but if you're wrong, you must bow down to me." The student thought for a moment and replied, "There are 4 seasons: spring, summer, autumn, and winter." The stranger argued, "Wrong, there are only 3 seasons." The student, puzzled, insisted, "Clearly there are 4 seasons in a year. Why do you say there are only 3? While they were arguing, Confucius came out and the stranger asked him, "Great sage, please settle this. How many seasons are there in a year?" Confucius looked at the man and said, 3 seasons. The stranger, feeling triumphant, turned to Confucius's student and said, "Did you hear that? Now bow down and apologize to me." Laughing victoriously, he walked away. The student, confused, asked Confucius, "Teacher, there are obviously 4 seasons in a year. Why did you say there are only 3? Confucius explained, "Did you not see that man? He is like a locust transformed into a human. A locust lives only through spring, summer, and autumn. It knows nothing of winter. What's the point of arguing with him endlessly?" The student realized the deeper wisdom of the sage. Arguing with someone not on the same level is a pointless waste of time. Laozi said, "The good do not argue, and those who argue are not good." Personal growth is shown through actions, not words. True wisdom does not need to be debated. Small-minded people think they can establish truth by arguing incessantly. In truth, wisdom is not owned by anyone. It is the way of the universe. The duty of the noble is to cultivate themselves to reach the realm of truth, known as enlightenment. Small-minded people stubbornly argue with others out of ignorance. In the Tao Te Ching, Laozi wrote, "The way of the sage is to act without contending." During the Northern Song dynasty, THUAT, while walking in the streets of Luoyang, was suddenly cursed at by someone. A passerby whispered to THUAT, "Young man, someone is cursing at you." THUAT replied, "It seems they are cursing someone else." The passerby said, "They are calling your name." THUAT thought for a moment and said, "Perhaps they are cursing someone else who shares my name." Ashamed, the cursor came to apologize to THUAT. Isn't this the behavior of a nobleman, not arguing with the petty? It's not about being weak, but about not engaging in trivial matters. Stepping back broadens your horizons. Thus, the ancients believed that the truly intelligent can play the fool, which is a wise way to handle life. Life is too short and precious, and there's too much to do to waste time on annoyances. By understanding the way of playing the fool, you reach a higher level of great wisdom. In the Analects, Confucius taught, "A nobleman does not seek to satisfy his appetite or seek comfort, but is quick in his deeds and careful with his words." Also, a nobleman is slow to speak, but quick to act. Clearly, the ancients valued action over words, proving themselves through deeds rather than clever arguments, speaking humbly, or even remaining silent. In contrast, petty people talk a lot but do little. Hence the saying, "Eating like a dragon, talking like a dragon climbing." It's easy to understand that those who refrain from arguing are busy working. Petty people do little, so they have time to talk a lot, which doesn't truly reflect capability. Wise individuals value their limited time, dedicating themselves fully to their tasks, not wasting it on right or wrong arguments. They have long abandoned the struggle of superiority. Petty people may speak cleverly, but in reality, they leave the work to others. Therefore, arguing with the petty is just lowering oneself to their level, wasting precious time. 26. Embracing change, the path to success and enlightenment. 1. Who usually succeeds according to fate? People with open minds who don't cling to just one thing and can easily learn new knowledge, accept others who are different, and expand their own worlds are often favored by fate. 2. People often compare themselves to others to find themselves, especially those who aspire to succeed. They analyze the differences between themselves and successful people, figuring out certain conditions and situations. 3. This way of thinking is influenced by Western thought. Although it can bring about small changes and order, it often overlooks the most basic factors, chasing shadows instead of substance. 4. Fate is always fair to everyone. The so-called successful and unsuccessful people aren't just about superficial things like skills, education, appearance, or behavior. In reality, it's about one's capacity for tolerance and the ability to let go of trivial matters, along with a knack for transformation. 5. Transformation is about making changes to clear the way, which requires courage and wisdom. While it's commonly taught to do good deeds to accumulate positive energy and thus improve one's destiny, the effect of this energy is often small and slow. Many people think they're doing good, but they might actually be doing harm. 6. A person's true nature is often shown on the surface. The central line from the forehead downward reflects a person's heart and mind. So, a person with a distorted mindset will show it on their face, which becomes twisted and asymmetrical, leading to more struggles in life. 7. The ability to transform shows a person's true character. Those with a generous spirit continuously elevate their awareness and refresh their concepts. A successful person's ideas often transcend the times and grasp opportunities. 8. Those who achieve great things can transcend their era and create opportunities. These individuals are often seen as visionaries or saints because their creativity influences the development of their times, and they are favored by fate. 9. Conversely, why do many people face increasing difficulties? It's because they have a narrow mind, exaggerate their own thoughts, leading to a blockade in their intellect, unable to absorb new knowledge and becoming stubborn. 10. Therefore, the lives of these individuals lack transformation, showing many wrinkles or scars on their foreheads. These marks form obstacles to success in life, so looking at this central line can reveal a person's fate. 11. The word transform in transformation is not about changing, but about continuously elevating thought throughout life, hence the need to constantly transform. If one limits their own state of consciousness, they will become increasingly rejected by society, eventually leading to a state of despair and impasse. 12. Today, many people believe their traditional knowledge is the ultimate truth because they are heavily influenced by Western thinking. This method, taught in schools if blindly followed, can block intellectual clarity and make it difficult to understand many aspects of life. If you find these stories inspiring and they motivate you to take action, please comment 9. If not, comment 0. Your feedback means a lot to us. Thank you for your valuable time. 27. Finding light in desperation. A 50-year-old man came to me for advice. He looked utterly worn out, completely desperate and devoid of hope. He kept saying, "It's all over, all over." His walk was shaky, as if he had lost his soul. "All of it?" I asked. "Everything," he reiterated, proving that his life had reached a very dark and grim place. "I have nothing left at all. Everything is gone. There's no hope left. I'm too old to start over. I've lost all faith." I listened sympathetically to his heartbreaking words. Despair had filled his heart, and discouragement had eroded his will. He was physically fine. His illness was of the mind. His appearance was frail, his limbs trembled. Oddly, he sat there like a 92-year-old man counting his last days in a nursing home. I calmly said, "Okay, let's take a piece of paper and see what assets you still have." "No need, doctor," he sighed heavily. "I have nothing left. Haven't I made that clear?" "No worries, I understand. But let's check one last time," I insisted. "Is your wife still with you?" "What? Of course, she's really good to me. We've been married for 30 years. No matter how bad things get, she would never leave me." "Good. Let me write this down. Your wife is still with you and she will never abandon you no matter what. What about your children? Do you have any?" "Yes," he answered. "I have 3 children. They are all doing well. They tell me, 'Dad, we love you. We will always support you.'" I'm really touched to hear that. So that's the second item, 3 loving and supportive children. "Do you have any friends?" I asked. "I have a few good friends who have always been ready to help me, and they have been willing to assist me. But now, they can't do anything more for me." "So you have good friends who respect and are willing to help you. But I wonder, what about your character? Have you done anything you regret?" "I feel I've lived a decent life. I always try to do the right thing and I've never harmed anyone." "Very good. Let's add one more line here. Good morals. How's your health?" "I'm perfectly fine. Rarely sick. I'm quite healthy. But lately I've been feeling depressed and like life has ended a long time ago." "How about America? Do you still see opportunities in this country?" "This is the only country I want to live in until the day I die," he replied. I then asked, "Do you believe that God will help you?" He looked a bit confused, furrowed his brow and said, "I still believe in God until the end of my days. I hope God will forgive my sins and wipe away all my sorrows." "All right, let's review this sheet now and see what you still have," I said. 1. A devoted wife of over 30 years who will never abandon you. 2. 3 loving and supportive children. 3. Good friends who respect and are willing to help you. 4. Good morals. 5. Healthy with no illnesses. 6. Living in the greatest country on earth. 7. Faith in God. I showed him the paper saying, "I think you still have a lot of assets, but initially you told me you had nothing left." The man awkwardly took the paper from my hands, stared at it for several minutes as if reading every line carefully. Suddenly, he looked up, tears streaming down his cheeks. His lips trembled and he began to sob uncontrollably, covering his face with his hands. I sat quietly beside him, watching him cry deeply like a child feeling remorseful. He looked up and said, "I thought I had nothing left. I am such a fool. Today, I was planning to end my life with a sleeping pill after meeting you. But now I understand. God has never abandoned me." Without waiting for my response, he stood up, shook my hand firmly, closed the door quietly, and walked out into the rain. But he walked with a different demeanor than when he had arrived. Perhaps all he wanted at that moment was to go home, hug his wife and 3 children tightly, and tell them he loved them. So life doesn't always go as planned. We always hope for a peaceful and fulfilling life, but there are still turbulent waves and stormy nights that seem to sweep us away, drying out our hearts and leaving us feeling hopeless. But have you ever tried what the doctor did? Even in the deepest despair, count what you still have. In your darkest moments, you still have family, friends, health, morals, and God, the Buddha, watching over you. If you are a good person, keeping goodness in your heart, life will not block your path forever. If things aren't settled yet, it surely isn't the end. So keep living joyfully, trust, love life, and cherish yourself. Your parents went through much to bring you into this world. In a deeper sense, your life has likely been protected and supported by divine forces. You may have heard how God created humans from the dust of the earth. From that dust, the supreme beings created you. It wasn't easy. If you don't cherish your life, you are failing yourself, your parents, and the divine beings who nurtured your life and soul. And remember, life is a fleeting illusion. We find ourselves in lost places. Life is like a dream flashing by. Always strive to maintain a kind heart. 28. What is most important in life? Sometimes we feel hopeless and sad about our current selves, but then we admire who we were in the past. A 70-year-old admires the health of someone at 60 and wishes to be as healthy. Health seems most important. A 60-year-old looks at a 50-year-old who still has the care of parents and the support of children and thinks family is most important. A 50-year-old envies a 40-year-old at the peak of their career with endless opportunities, seeing career as most important. A 40-year-old looks at a 30-year-old who is just past their youth and full of potential, believing ambition is most important. A 30-year-old looks at a 20-year-old in the prime of youth and love and feels love is most important. So, what really is the most important thing in life? Throughout our lives, we have these contradictions. We regret what we've wasted: health, family, career, or love. We all hope to find our own path to happiness. However, happiness isn't about having everything but being content with what we have. As we age, we may find that everything we once had, youth, love, career, health, family, was our happiness. Yet, many of us still tirelessly seek happiness. No amount of wealth can bring happiness if one cannot be content with what they have. Enough is happiness is a saying that holds true. Only when we appreciate what we have do we truly understand happiness. Living without regrets means prioritizing what matters most at the time, whether it's love, career, or family. Often we only realize what was truly important when it's too late. Humans are limited. No matter how hard we try, there are things we can't achieve, and those achievements may not satisfy us in the long run. Therefore, it's not about what we have, but whether what we have is important to us. In my hometown, there are two old men, Mr. Tai and Mr. Min. Mr. Tai is wealthy, lacking nothing, yet he envies Mr. Min, who lives a simple, content life despite his modest means. Mr. Min's children, though not wealthy or famous, respect and care for their parents, whereas Mr. Tai's children are only interested in his wealth. Mr. Min enjoys simple meals and sleeps peacefully, while Mr. Tai struggles with his health and family disputes. Mr. Min passed away peacefully at 100, while Mr. Tai lives a troubled life due to illness. Sometimes I wonder if Mr. Tai and Mr. Min switched places, would Mr. Tai be happier? It's hard to say. Happiness doesn't come from what we gain, but what we can let go of. Thank you for taking the time to listen to our video. I wish you the strength to overcome all the storms in life and achieve great success. Farewell, and see you in our next video. 29. Never give up. Over 10 years ago, American film star Stallone was extremely poor with only $100 to his name, not even enough to rent a room. He had to sleep in his car. At that time, he was determined to become an actor. He confidently went to a film company in New York to apply for a job. In New York, there were 500 film companies, but they all rejected him due to his ordinary appearance and his slurred speech. Later, he wrote the script for Rocky and tried to sell it everywhere. People mocked and ridiculed him again. At that point, he had been rejected 1855 times. Finally, one day, he met a film company owner who was willing to produce the boxing movie Rocky that he wrote. However, they requested that he not act in the movie. In the end, because he was so determined, the company agreed to let him star in the film. Could you face 1855 rejections and still not give up like Stallone did? If you haven't succeeded or have experienced failure and you're thinking about giving up, ask yourself if you've faced 1855 rejections yet. 30. Steadfast belief. Robert and his wife Mary finally made it to the mountain peak. Standing there and looking out, the distant white buildings of the city seemed like a painting under the sunlight. They looked up at the blue sky with white clouds, feeling the gentle breeze. Both of them were as happy as children, waving their arms and forgetting everything else. For people who work hard every day, this was a rare chance to relax. That's when the real tragedy began. Robert slipped and his tall frame started to fall towards the steep cliff with no footholds nearby. Quickly realizing what was happening, Mary instinctively grabbed onto his shirt with her teeth while she was squatting down to take a photo of the distant scenery. The momentum also pulled her towards the edge, but in a moment of danger, she managed to cling to a tree trunk. Robert was dangling in the air and Mary clenched her teeth hard. Can you believe it? Those small white teeth held the weight of a large man. Mary couldn't even open her mouth to shout for help. An hour later, fortunately, a passing tourist rescued them. By then, Mary's beautiful teeth and lips were stained with blood. When asked how she could endure it for so long, she replied, "All I could think about was if I let go, Robert would surely die." A few days later, their story had spread all over the world. 31. Persistence. In the past, Kerr worked for a publishing house. When he first joined the company, he was a salesperson for advertising. He was very confident and proposed to his manager that he would work on commission only, without a base salary. The manager agreed to his request. Kerr then listed and prepared to visit some particularly challenging clients. The other sales staff believed these clients were impossible to work with. Before visiting these clients, Kerr would lock himself in a room, stand in front of a mirror, read the list of clients 10 times and tell himself, "This month, you will buy our advertising space." With immense confidence, he visited the clients and managed to close deals with 3 out of the 20 clients deemed unapproachable. A few days later, he closed 2 more deals, and by the end of the month, only 1 out of the 20 had not yet bought advertising from him. In the second month, Kerr didn't look for new clients but continued to persuade the last one on his list. Every morning, as soon as the store opened, he would go in and try to convince them to buy advertising, only to be rejected each time. Despite their refusals, Kerr acted as if he hadn't heard and returned the next day. On the 30th day, the store owner said to Kerr, "You've wasted a month trying to sell me your advertising, but what I want to know now is why you keep doing this." Kerr replied, "I'm not wasting my time. I am learning and you are my teacher. You have taught me to persist through adversity." The business owner nodded and said, "I must admit, I am learning too, and you are also my teacher. You have taught me how persistence can be more valuable than money. To show my gratitude, I will buy your advertising as a tuition fee for the lessons you've given me." Ultimately, failure is not what matters. What matters is that we always maintain a persistent attitude in the face of difficulties, keeping our spirits unyieldingly strong and refusing to bow down to challenges. 32. The Blue Swallow. Once upon a time, there was a carefree, joyful boy who had a charming little friend, a blue swallow. They were very close, and whenever the boy went anywhere, the bird would joyfully fly alongside him. One day, a beautiful girl moved to the boy's class. Our little boy had a crush on her but was too shy to approach her. It wasn't until the school organized a party that he finally gathered the courage to ask her out. The girl, being the prettiest in school, wasn't arrogant, but she didn't want to go out with just one boy for fear of teasing from friends. So, she told the boy that she would accept his invitation if he could find her a red rose. The boy was saddened by this because He knew that there were no red roses in the area, only white ones. On his way home, he kept wishing she had asked for a white rose instead. Meanwhile, his little friend, the blue swallow, understood what the boy needed and spent the entire night awake. At dawn, the bird came up with a plan to help his friend. It flew to a nearby large rose bush, threw itself into the thorns, and its blood stained the white petals red, turning them into a beautiful red rose. When the boy stepped outside, he saw a stunning red rose right in front of his door. In his excitement, he failed to notice the blue swallow lying in a pool of blood nearby. The boy took the rose to school, but on the way, he ran into a group of friends playing soccer. Initially, he said he had important things to do, but his friends persuaded him to join them. Looking at his friends and then at the rose, he thought, maybe she didn't really want to go out with me after all, asking for a red rose like that. Even if I brought it to her, who says she would agree? So, he threw the rose away and joined the soccer game. You might find this story familiar, like something out of a fairy tale where warm blood turns white petals red, just like blood stains the snow. But there's a deeper message here. The boy represents each of us. The blue swallow symbolizes all that is good, family, close friends, opportunities. The girl stands for a goal to be achieved. The red rose represents the challenges we need to overcome. The soccer game with friends symbolizes the small, immediate pleasures that sometimes distract us from our long-term goals.
If you like this video, please comment 1, and if you don't, comment 2. Your feedback means a lot to us. Thank you for your valuable time.
33. The Horse Rider. It was a bitterly cold night in Northern Virginia many years ago. The frost was intense, yet there stood an old man by the road, waiting for someone to offer him a ride. It was unclear how long he had been there, or how much longer he would have to wait, but he stood shivering, patiently waiting. Many horse riders passed by, but the old man silently did not signal to them. He didn't do anything to draw attention. One by one, people passed where he stood, but the old man remained still, like a statue. As the night grew colder and people became scarce, the old man suddenly sprang to life when he heard the sound of horse hooves. "Young man, could you possibly give me a lift for a bit? There's too much snow here, I can't go on." The rider pulled on the reins, dismounted, and helped the old man onto the horse. He didn't just give the old man a short lift, but took him all the way to his home. Before the old man entered his house, the curious rider asked, "Sir, I saw you standing there for a long time. Why didn't you ask for a ride earlier? There were many people passing by during the day. Why did you stand waiting while it was so dark and cold?" The old man looked into the eyes of the rider and replied, "Son, I've been around here a long time. I can look into a person's eyes and judge them. When the previous riders passed by, they glanced at me and turned away immediately. There was no concern or warmth in their eyes. So I thought even if I flagged them down, they wouldn't care. But when you came along, from a distance, you looked at me and didn't take your eyes off me. In your eyes, I saw compassion and worry, and right then, I knew you wanted to help." Those words deeply moved the rider. "I truly appreciate your words, sir. I hope I'll never be too busy to notice others when they need help." And right then, Thomas Jefferson turned his horse back towards the White House. 34. Look up. Sometimes people come into your life and you instantly realize how meaningful their presence is. They teach you lessons, help you see your worth, or shape you into the person you've dreamed of being. These individuals might be roommates, neighbors, professors, long-lost friends, or even complete strangers. Even when they seem indifferent, remember that each moment with them profoundly impacts your life. At first, events may seem terrible, painful, and unfair, but reflecting on your life will show you that without these challenges you wouldn't recognize your talents, strength, will, and kindness. Everything happens for a reason. Nothing is merely by chance. Whether it's illness, heartbreak, stolen moments, or any other misfortune, remember these are valuable lessons. Life without them would be a straight path, a directionless road filled with uneventful days. The people you meet influence your life. Success or failure, even the worst experiences, are precious lessons that help you understand your value. If someone hurts, betrays, or takes advantage of you, forgive them because they help you appreciate honesty and who to open your heart to. And if someone loves you genuinely, love them back unconditionally, not just because they love you, but because they teach you how to love. Cherish every moment and remember the ones you won't have again. Reach out to people you've never spoken to and learn to listen. Let your heart love others. The sky is vast, so look up and believe in yourself. Listen to your heart say, "You are a wonderful person." Be confident and value yourself because if you don't, who will? Own your life and never regret this approach. If you love someone, tell them, even if it risks rejection, because it might just mend a broken heart. 35. A moment of vulnerability. One day, during my freshman year in high school, I saw a classmate named Kyle walking home from school carrying all his books. I thought to myself, why would someone bring home so many books on a Friday? He must be crazy. I had plans for the weekend, parties and a football game with friends the next day, so I just shrugged and kept walking. As I walked on, I saw a group of kids running towards him. They knocked all the books out of Kyle's hands and tripped him, making him fall into the dirt. His glasses flew off and I saw them land in the grass a few feet away. When he looked up, I could see the immense sadness in his eyes. My heart told me to go help him as he crawled around looking for his glasses, and I saw tears in his eyes. I handed him his glasses and said, "Those guys are idiots. They really don't know how to live properly." Kyle looked at me and said, "Thanks," with a big, genuine smile. I helped him pick up his books and asked where he lived. It turned out he lived near me. I wondered why I had never seen him before. He said he had been at a private school before. We talked all the way home and I carried his books. Kyle turned out to be a really nice and kind kid. I asked him if he wanted to play football with me and my friends on Saturday. He agreed. We hung out all weekend, and the more I got to know Kyle, the more I liked him. My friends felt the same way. By Monday, I saw Kyle again with a huge stack of books. I stopped him and joked, "Hey, you're going to build some serious muscles carrying those books every day." Kyle laughed and shared some of the books with me. Over the next 4 years, Kyle and I became best friends. As graduation approached, we both planned for college. Kyle decided on Georgetown and I chose Duke. I knew we would always be friends. Distance wouldn't be a problem. Kyle wanted to become a doctor while I aimed to be a football player. Kyle had to prepare a graduation speech and I was glad I didn't have to stand and speak in front of everyone. On graduation day, Kyle looked great. He was one of the success stories of our high school. He was confident and handsome with his glasses. He dated more than I did and all the girls liked him. Sometimes, I felt a bit jealous. That day, I noticed Kyle seemed nervous about his speech. So, I patted him on the back and said, "Hey, big guy, you'll do great." He looked at me with gratitude and smiled. "Thanks." Then he cleared his throat and began his speech. Graduation is a time to thank those who helped you through the tough years of school. Parents, teachers, siblings, or maybe a coach, but mostly your friends. I want to tell everyone that being someone's friend is the greatest gift you can give them. I'm about to tell you a story. I looked at my friend. I couldn't believe he was talking about the first day we met. He had planned to end his life that weekend. He explained that he had cleared out his locker so his mom wouldn't have to do it later and had brought all his study materials home. Kyle looked at me intently and smiled. "I'm so grateful that I was saved. My friend saved me from doing something unspeakable." I heard the crowd whisper as this popular, handsome guy talked about his weakest moment. I saw his parents looking at me, and they also smiled gratefully. It wasn't until then that I realized how deep that gratitude was. Never underestimate the power of your actions. With one small gesture, you can change someone's life for better or worse. God has placed us all in each other's lives to impact one another in some way. Look for the miracles in the people around you. 36. The Glass Rose. Yesterday was Tom's 10th birthday, and his dad sent him a special gift. It was a big package filled with lots of chocolate candies and a beautiful crystal glass rose. For many days after school, Tom and his friend Jack would go to the supermarket just to admire the rose in the glass cabinet. It was too expensive for Tom, but now his dream of holding that rose had come true. Tom was overjoyed. He knew he had to do something. Right, I'll show Jack. He'll be so happy about it. Thinking this, Tom ran to Jack's house with the crystal rose and some candy bars in his hands. Jack's house was huge, with a garden and a building that looked like a prince's castle. After Tom excitedly shared about his new gift, Jack couldn't hide his excitement and asked to hold it. For Tom, sharing it with his best friend was easy. He happily showed Jack the stunning crystal rose and his birthday candies. The rose shone brilliantly, captivating the two kids. They then spent a wonderful time playing in Jack's garden, with Tom filled with birthday joy. He had never been so happy since his respected father had left the city to work afar. Then, a terrible thing happened. Tom's glass rose shattered on the floor. It might have rolled off the table. Tom burst into tears, sobbing uncontrollably as his joy and hopes were completely dashed. Tearfully, he looked at Jack, who stood awkwardly behind. "You did this, didn't you, Jack? You're so mean." I didn't." Jack stammered, trying to defend himself, but Tom ran out of Jack's house, completely heartbroken. Days passed, and Tom didn't go to school because he was very ill and had to be rushed to the hospital. Meanwhile, Jack's family moved to another city, and Jack transferred schools. A few days later, Tom recovered and could go back to school. He received a gift box from Jack, handed to him by a classmate. Curious, Tom opened the box to find a chocolate candy bar and a crystal rose, along with a letter. "Tom, I'm so sorry about what happened. My family had to move, and I wanted to give you your favorite gift for your birthday, but I didn't mean to upset you, so I'm sending a different gift now. I hope you get well soon and remain my best friend forever. Jack." What? So, the gift wasn't from his dad? Tom was flooded with thoughts and eventually realized that he had wrongly blamed Jack. Why had he accused Jack without any reason? Clearly, Jack was good to him, had made his birthday happy, and even gave him a gift. Surely his dad couldn't have bought such an expensive item, as he hadn't been home for a long time and hadn't even remembered his birthday. Oh, it was all his fault. Tom had foolishly blamed Jack. Now, Tom truly understood what friendship meant. It was noble and beautiful like a crystal rose, stunning from various angles but fragile like glass, easily shattered if not carefully handled. Jack was Tom's closest friend, and now, just like Tom's respected father, he was gone and wouldn't return. If you find these stories inspiring and they motivate you to take action, please comment 9. If not, comment 0. Your feedback means a lot to us. Thank you for your valuable time. 37. Confess your love before it's too late. Eric was the dream guy for many girls at high school. Kathleen was one of the most popular girls at school. She was beautiful, stylish, and very attractive. Carol was a simple girl, nothing outstanding. She was just one of the many ordinary high school girls. Both Kathleen and Carol were deeply in love with Eric. Kathleen didn't need to do anything to get noticed. In Eric's eyes, she was already captivating enough. Carol, on the other hand, wasn't unattractive. In fact, she looked happy and cute. But she wasn't a glamorous cheerleader. All she had to offer Eric was her love and care. As everyone expected, Eric chose Kathleen. Eric told Carol that she was just an ordinary and unattractive girl. This deeply hurt Carol. Such is life. But Carol refused to give up. She wanted to show Eric that beauty isn't everything. Carol threw herself into her studies. She quickly became one of the top students in the school. Boys who had previously ignored her were now interested in her. Yet her heart still held a place for Eric. Every day she left a red rose and a note in Eric's locker. "I really care about you, always have." Meanwhile, Eric wasn't as happy as he thought he would be. His girlfriend, Kathleen, soon left him for another attractive guy. Life is like that. He began to wonder if he had made the wrong choice before and realized how foolish he had been to be enamored only with outer beauty. He felt remorseful. Gathering all his courage, Eric approached Carol, knelt before her, and said, "Forgive me, Carol. Would you be my girlfriend?" To everyone's surprise, Carol declined. She simply told Eric, "You've just gone through a big loss. I don't want you to face that again." Eric didn't fully understand her response, but he accepted her decision. Thus, they became close friends, sharing everything. From then on, people saw a change in Eric. He became a better person, all thanks to Carol. She cared for him in a way no other girl had before. Others saw Eric for his good looks, but Carol accepted him for who he was, with all the love she had. Every day, Carol continued to leave a red rose in Eric's locker with the same note. "I really care about you, always have." One day, Carol didn't show up to class. A week passed, and she was still absent. Initially, Eric thought she had gone on a family trip to Hawaii, as she had mentioned before. But after another week with no sign of Carol, Eric began to worry. Then he received a call from the city hospital. They told him Carol was dying. Carol had not wanted to tell Eric about her cancer. She didn't want him to worry about her. But in her final moments, she longed to see him one last time. Eric rushed to the hospital. Tears streamed down his face as he saw her frail, pale, and exhausted. "Why didn't you tell me? Why did you hide this from me?" Carol looked at Eric tenderly, managing a gentle smile. "When I said before that I didn't want you to face another loss, this is what I meant. I didn't tell you because I didn't want you to worry. I just wanted to enjoy my last days happily with you." Eric sobbed. "I can't lose you. What will I do without you? You will live as you are now. Don't forget I'm always with you. Enjoy life and be happy. Oh, and one more thing." "What is it?" "I love you." Then Carol passed away. Eric had only a month with Carol, but she changed his entire life in an inexplicable way with her love. Eric stayed behind in pain and regret. We are often the same. Sometimes we don't realize who truly cares about us until they are gone forever. Then we are left with regret. Confess your love to the one you love. Don't hold back, because you might lose them before you even get a chance to speak. Love is when we fight to the last breath to tell someone how much we love them. 38. 7. Essential qualities to change your destiny. Whether a person's destiny is good or not partly depends on fate, but largely it can be changed by improving oneself. So, what does it mean to improve oneself? How should we do it? Mainly, it involves cultivating our mind because a person's character significantly affects their fate. Being good doesn't shield you from all problems, but it always helps overcome difficulties. Especially, people with the following 7 qualities not only have good fortune and great blessings, but can also change their destiny. 1. Admitting faults. People often don't admit their mistakes and blame others, thinking they are right. However, this is actually a mistake. Those who admit their faults can be parents, friends, acquaintances, or even one's children or those who are unkind to us. Admitting faults doesn't cost anything but shows generosity and understanding. 2. Gentleness. Human teeth are hard, but the tongue is soft. As people age, all their teeth fall out, but the tongue remains. Thus, if you want to live a long life, keep a gentle attitude. Being rigid only leads to loss. Moreover, a soft heart makes life more joyful and sustainable. 3. Patience. In this world, things often don't go as planned. Many times, just a bit of patience and stepping back can calm the storm and open up vast new horizons. Patience can resolve many disappointments, lessen the severity of situations, and with wisdom, turn big issues into small ones or dissolve them entirely. Understanding patience allows one to discern truth, good from evil, and right from wrong without losing judgment due to haste. 4. Letting go. Life is full of things to carry, and when necessary, they are used. But why not let go of the things you no longer need? When it's time to let go, clinging to them only weighs you down. Life is limited. Understanding when to let go, learning from mistakes, showing respect, and being forgiving can open up a broader horizon. 5. Gratitude. Be happy for others' joy. When encountering good people or good fortune, remember to be thankful. Maintaining a grateful heart naturally smooths things over and enhances relationships. 6. Valuing oneself. Health is wealth is particularly profound for the elderly or ill. A healthy person does not cause worry to friends and family. If you overwork and neglect your health, eventually, all the money earned will just go towards medical expenses. Isn't that a waste? By adopting these qualities, you can significantly influence your fate and lead a more fulfilling life. 39. The enduring consequences of past actions, a tale of redemption and enlightenment. Anyone who still has a mother should never make her cry. Being cruel enough to starve and hurt your own mother will bring consequences that last a lifetime. Once, when the Buddha was in the city of Shravasti, there lived a Brahmin who made his living by begging. His family was extremely poor and suffered a lot. His wife also had to beg, and when she became pregnant, she strangely could not beg anything from anyone. After 9 months, she gave birth to a boy who was sickly and unattractive, and he had a hunchback. They named him Little Taba. After giving birth, the mother's milk suddenly dried up due to the immediate effects of past actions, so they had to feed the baby cow's milk, which was also hard to obtain. Since this was to be his last life to endure the consequences of his past actions, he would not die until he had paid them off. So, his parents struggled to take care of him in a life that was barely survivable. When he grew up, his father told him that since the family survived on begging, he should start begging too. Little Taba began begging, but often got nothing due to the effects of his past actions, only getting just enough food to barely keep him alive, suffering immensely in body and mind. Over time, Little Taba developed faith in the teachings of the Buddha and decided to become a monk. Life as a novice monk was manageable at first, but soon his teacher told him to beg alone. As he practiced the duties of a monk, sometimes joining the other monks and sometimes begging alone, he often found himself without enough food while the others were well fed. Sometimes when it was his turn to receive food, it would just run out or the donor would have to leave suddenly. Many senior monks, seeing his plight, felt pity and asked the Buddha for advice. The Buddha then made a rule that if the monk before hasn't received food, the monk following shouldn't either. Still, Little Taba often returned with an empty bowl. After he swept the Buddha's hall for 2 days, he was finally well fed and felt healthy and refreshed. From this, he gained the strength to overcome all mental afflictions and reached enlightenment. but he still had to face the leftover consequences of his past actions. Thinking it might help, he decided to sweep the teaching hall every day, but by the time he got there, another monk had already cleaned it. The next day, he went even earlier, only to find it already cleaned. On returning, he heard that a generous donor would be offering food to the Buddha and the monks, but by the time he arrived, the donor had left, and little Taba missed out again. On the fifth day, he again tried to sweep the hall early, but another monk had already done it. Despite his efforts, he remained unfed for several days. Eventually, other monks, aware of his plight, made special efforts to bring him food, but various misfortunes, like animals stealing the food, kept him from eating. Finally, after 7 days, another monk managed to bring him some food, but it fell and disappeared into the ground before he could eat it. As little Taba struggled, his mouth clamped shut, and he was unable to eat. Even though a monk tried to help him open his mouth with supernatural powers, it was already past the time monks are allowed to eat, and his mouth opened too late. The next day, needing water, he was given a bowl, but it turned into a bowl of ash water, which he drank, accepting his past actions. After this, he passed away and reached nirvana, the ultimate peace, free from suffering. Later, the monks asked the Buddha about little Taba's intense struggles despite being an enlightened monk. The Buddha explained that this was due to his past actions. In a past life, he had cruelly confined his mother, refusing her food or drink until she died despite her pleas. Because of this heinous act, he suffered immensely in many lives, always dying of hunger. His final act of drinking the ash water ended his suffering and allowed him to achieve nirvana. The Buddha's teachings on karma remind us that actions, good or bad, follow us through lifetimes until we face their consequences.
If you like this video, please comment 1, and if you don't, comment 2. Your feedback means a lot to us. Thank you for your valuable time.
40. Bao Hai, the Blessed Child. Bao Hai's father, a wealthy man living in the city of Shravasti during the time of the Buddha, was as rich as a king. He and his wife had a happy and fulfilling life together. When his wife became pregnant, their home filled with miraculous signs. Jewels and treasures appeared out of nowhere, flowers bloomed everywhere, and their bedroom transformed into a divine chamber fit for the gods. Unsure of these strange occurrences, Bao Hai's father feared they might be omens of evil spirits or demons affecting his wife. Seeking reassurance, he consulted a wise fortune-teller, who explained that these were auspicious signs brought about by the good fortune of the unborn child, and there was nothing to fear. Comforted by this, Bao Hai's father felt relieved. After 10 months, Bao Hai was born, an extraordinarily handsome and clean boy, adorned with precious stones and heavenly garments from the moment of his birth. His servants found themselves unable to change his clothes as new ones appeared as soon as the old ones were removed. After his bath, his bed transformed into a majestic one, decorated with rare treasures, and a palace appeared above it. Celebrating his birth, his father named him Bao Hai, meaning ocean of treasures, as treasures multiplied in their home like the sea. Raised by 8 nurses on nutritious foods, Bao Hai grew quickly, and wherever he went, divine beings laid carpets and scattered flowers in his path. As he matured, he excelled in academics, medicine, and various forms of observation. His father built 4 palaces for him, each suited to one of the seasons, where he lived in comfort, surrounded by divine beings and enjoying his life to the fullest. However, one day, Bao Hai developed a deep faith in the 3 treasures, Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, thinking it was time to renounce worldly pleasures and practice the Buddha's teachings to overcome the cycle of birth and death. He donated all his wealth for the peace and welfare of many, and decided to follow the Buddha in a monastic life. Even as a monk, divine beings continued to smooth his path and surround him with splendor, which puzzled and disturbed some fellow monks. Bao Hai, troubled by this, sought advice from the Buddha, who taught him that if he regarded all these manifestations as unnecessary, they would naturally disappear. Following the Buddha's advice, Bao Hai found that all vanished, and he lived simply, soon achieving enlightenment. The other monks, curious about Bao Hai's past life merits that brought such wealth and purity at birth, sought explanations from the Buddha. The Buddha revealed that in a previous life, during the time of a previous Buddha, Bao Hai was a wealthy man who built a splendid stupa and made great vows for prosperity, purity, and the constant presence of divine protection and beauty around him, and ultimately to attain enlightenment. Inspired by Bao Hai's story, the monks rejoiced and deepened their own faith and practice. 41. The Old Man. Once, when the Buddha was traveling to Kai Da Garden in the city of Zave, he encountered an elderly Brahmin. Upon seeing the Buddha, the old man couldn't contain his excitement and joyfully shouted, "My dear son! My dear son!" He then rushed forward, intending to embrace the Buddha. The monks following behind quickly stepped in to stop him. The Buddha, in his compassion, told the monks, "Do not stop him, or he might collapse from the emotional strain." The monks let go, and the old man embraced the Buddha, calling out again, "My dear son, my dear son." After a long moment, the old man gently released the Buddha, calmed down, and his emotional turmoil subsided. Then the Buddha preached to the old man a suitable teaching for liberation. Immediately, the old man attained the state of a sotapanna, stream enterer. After this realization, he knelt down and expressed his wish to ordain in the Buddha's teachings, to which the Buddha joyfully agreed and formally ordained him. As a monk, the old man lived a vigilant and disciplined life, adhering strictly to the monastic rules and diligently practicing the true Dharma. The Buddha tailored his teachings to suit the old man's spiritual needs, helping him to cultivate diligently. Before long, the old man eliminated all mental afflictions across the three realms and attained the state of an arhat, a fully enlightened being. Curious, the other monks respectfully asked the Buddha about the unusual behavior of the old man. The Buddha explained that the old man had been his father in 500 past lives. Due to the residual karmic tendencies from those lives, he acted as he did. The monks further inquired why the old man was not his father in this life. The Buddha explained that while practicing the bodhisattva path, he had vowed that the old man would not be his father again due to the old man's previous actions that hindered his spiritual progress. Additionally, his current father, King Tin Fan, had vowed in a past life to be his father when he became a Buddha. The monks asked about the king's past life connection. The Buddha recounted that 91 eons ago, during the time of Buddha Kowloon, a wealthy merchant who admired the Buddha made a vow that he would have a son like the Buddha, based on the merits of his offerings that day. That merchant was King Tin Fan in this life. Finally, the monks asked about the old man's late life encounter with the Buddha and his decision to ordain. The Buddha explained that it was the result of the old man's past actions of hindering generosity and the monastic path, which led to his impoverished state in this life. However, his previous life's vow to live a monastic life of awakening in the Buddha's teachings had matured, allowing him to meet the Buddha, ordain, and achieve enlightenment as an arhat. Upon hearing the Buddha's teachings about the old man's past causes, all the monks felt joyful and deeply trusted in the law of cause and effect, respectfully bowing before withdrawing. 42. The Karmic Journey of the Giant Whale. Lessons on Suffering and Redemption. The story, originally from a Buddhist text, tells about the incredible suffering of a giant whale in a mythical ocean with 3 layers. In the first layer, the ocean is 28,000 units deep, housing a whale that swallows everything in its vicinity when hungry. The second layer, 25,000 units deep, contains a whale even larger, which devours everything from the first layer. The third and shallowest layer, at 2,500 units deep, has the largest whale, which feeds on creatures from both previous layers. This particular whale suffers terribly. Creatures from the ocean bite and tear its flesh, causing immense pain. To alleviate its suffering, the whale swims to shore, only to be met by 500 demons armed with axes and hammers who slice its back, causing blood to flow extensively. Despite repeatedly returning to the ocean, its agony persists, leading to constant excruciating pain. Maudgalyayana, a great disciple of Buddha, uses his spiritual powers to observe this whale's sufferings and discover its past lives. Finding that the whale had previously only been a whale, Maudgalyayana consults Buddha for deeper insight. Buddha reveals that the whale's suffering is a result of karmic actions from many lifetimes ago when it was a malevolent minister. This minister killed a virtuous layman and tried to claim his wife, leading to immense negative karma. Eventually, it's prophesied that the whale will be reborn as a human and attain enlightenment, escaping the cycle of rebirth and suffering. This story serves to teach the disciples about the heavy consequences of negative karma and the transformative power of positive spiritual practice. 43. Kim Sak, the Nun. There once was a girl in the city of Vaishali, born into a poor family with 18 undesirable traits that left her parents deeply distressed. Her father suggested abandoning her at night to let nature take its course, but her mother objected, advocating that they should at least wait until she could fend for herself before possibly turning her away. As a result, the parents kept her hidden at home, away from others' eyes. Once she could sustain herself, they reluctantly sent her away. The girl wandered the streets, barely surviving, her already unappealing appearance worsened by disease, making her misery unbearable. Ananda, a compassionate disciple, noticed her dire state and approached her gently. He asked about her name and her story. The girl, still clear-minded, pleaded with Ananda to help her overcome the bad karma from her past lives. Ananda promised to teach her good deeds to counteract her negative karma. Ananda then gave her some sesame oil and flowers and instructed her to offer them at the stupa of Buddha's hair and nails. At that moment, a nobleman named Kapilavatthu also arrived and, moved by her plight, gave her a new set of clothes. Buddha, aware of her suffering, visited the stupa himself. Seeing Buddha's serene and majestic presence, the girl felt an overwhelming sense of faith and decided to offer the clothes she just received to the Buddha. After making her offering, she prayed joyfully and passed away, her heart filled with happiness. Upon her death, she was reborn into a wealthy merchant family, beautiful and with a golden-hued skin, thus named Kim Sak. By the age of 7, she developed a pure faith in Buddhism. With her parents' consent, she became a nun, living a mindful life and quickly achieving the spiritual state of an arahant due to her diligence. After attaining enlightenment, Kim Sak looked back on her past life and was immensely grateful to Ananda for his guidance, which had helped her escape a life marked by physical unattractiveness and poor circumstances. She devotedly made offerings to him daily. The monks, curious about her fortunate rebirth, asked Buddha about her past. Buddha explained that as a young girl, she had made significant offerings to him, which she did with great faith and joy. This act of devotion led to her rebirth in favorable circumstances. Additionally, Buddha described how in a past life she had been stubborn and verbally abusive, which resulted in her poor initial rebirth. However, Her positive intentions and actions eventually outweighed the negative, leading to her final enlightened state as an arahant. This was the karmic journey of the arahant Kim Sak. If you find these stories inspiring and they motivate you to take action, please comment 9. If not, comment 0. Your feedback means a lot to us. Thank you for your valuable time.